Hello, just little old me again, Jason Robson, just back making an attempt to answer questions, or in this case a question from one of my subscribers. Dan Underwood asks what my thoughts are on a small framed or light framed person's strength potential, absolute strength potential, which is a good question because we all know that frame and bone density is very important for absolute strength. We see this in the world's strongest man, for example, where the competitors are well over 6.5 feet and weigh over 400 pounds. You know, obviously they've got a favourable frame to carry a lot of body mass. Also, obviously, we know that muscles and bone are intrinsically linked. They generate from the same stem cell line and also grow by the same hormonal response in puberty. Osteopenia and sarcopenia are closely related. One's weakening of the bone tissue due to aging, and the other one's weakening of the muscle tissue due to aging. So we know how important bones and frame are for strength. But there are other factors. What people sometimes don't look at who haven't got a particularly big frame. You know, they might have favourable insertions and leverages, which give them advantages in things like bench presses or squats, overhead presses, that type of thing. So although they haven't got the potential for the absolute strength as what someone who is well over 6 foot with, you know, a bigger frame, the actual strength, the pound for pound ratio is potentially really good because of the smaller frame and the favourable insertions. There's lots of examples I could point out in bodybuilding as well as powerlifting. Probably the most notable, which most people know, is Franco Columbu, who at 5'4" and about 180 pounds could never be called large framed, and yet you could bench press well over 500 pounds and squat 700 and deadlift over 700 pounds, and actually competed in the world's strongest man in the late 70s against people that outweighed him by about 150 pounds and actually beat some of them. So, you know, if you're not large framed, it's not the end of the world. Far from it. Obviously, anyone with any size frame, you need to look at maximising the amount of muscle you can put on that frame, which, as always, it's the old, what I always say, it's calories, you know, as well as heavy resistance training, progressive resistance training, getting stronger, you know, on a progressive basis over the course of years and decades to actually maximise the amount of muscle you can put on your frame, regardless of how big it is. You know, as for actual numbers, when I said on the other video that most medium to large frame people can achieve a 500 pound squat, 300 pounds or even more than a 300 pound press and a 500 pound deadlift, that was just the actual minimum for somebody of a large or medium frame, with just average insertions and not a special, you know, propensity to have, you know, more white muscle fibers and things like that. I'm on about an average genetic person, you know, an average genetic person. The upper end of a large frame, you know, the sky's the limit. There's people who have squatted and deadlifted 700 or 800 pounds naturally and bench press well over 500 with no, you know, special assistance whatsoever. You know, these people do exist. It's not common. It's quite rare, but they do exist. So I can give you maximums because human beings can only get so strong. You know, because as human beings, we're more designed for actually endurance rather than strength, which is why you can actually develop a higher level of fitness in quite a short space of time, in maybe 2 months, a really high level of fitness, whereas you can't develop a higher level of strength in 2 months. It's more likely to take 2 decades. So obviously the way the human being is designed is for endurance rather than strength. It's actually quite unnatural for a human being to be very, very strong. But as for like smaller frame potential, I couldn't actually say. I really couldn't say because there's so many variables involved. You know, I quoted the example of Franco Columbu a moment ago, just one example, and there's lots of people just like that. You know, anyone who's watching this who thinks it's pointless being dedicated or, you know, making an effort because they haven't got a huge frame could be selling themselves short, because it all depends, you know, what your leverage you like, what your muscle insertion. You might have a propensity towards predominantly having white muscle fibers or more white muscle fibers than red fibers, which gives you more explosive power. You're never going to know until you try. It's as simple as that. As long as you try to build muscle on whatever size frame you've got. And also, I would say, if you mass the technical aspects of the lift, so you don't hurt yourself. Use very good biomechanics, strict biomechanics that don't throw stress onto any one joint, in particular when you're doing things like squats or bench presses, deadlifts. You know, full body barbell exercises really. So as for the actual answer to the question, how strong can a small frame person be? It's just, I can't say. I could, if I work with somebody closely, one-to-one, I could tell straight away within a few workouts whether you've got the right levers to actually be a brilliant squatter or a great deadlifter or a great bench presser. It's dead easy to see. But to give a number that applies to everybody, it's really difficult. But in the other video I mentioned those numbers because it was a minimum for a medium to large frame person if they trained properly and ate properly and didn't try to stay too lean. You know, I've said this before, if someone's 6 foot, to lift, you know, the quarter-ton squats, proper deep parallel squats, you need to be weighing about 240 pounds really. Most people, unless you really are a genetic freak where you can weigh less and lift a lot, which is very, unless you're short, you know, you've got to be big. Weight lifts weight. So there's no actual, I can't give you figures on how strong a small frame person can be. You know, another example, the Chinese weightlifting team. You know, I mean, they're not big framed generally. I mean, you get the odd one that's like a giant, but in general, you know, they're very below 5.5 foot or 5'6" or whatever, and they might weigh 140, 150 pounds, and they can lift incredible weights. You know, the Olympic weightlifters. So they obviously, it doesn't stop them from being strong. So you know, it's all about, you know, time and being dedicated and putting effort in and putting as much muscle as you can on the frame that you've got. You know, so minimums I can't really say. Probably more than what you think actually, if you've got the right levers. But you know, I wish I could have given you a bit more of a solid answer on that one. But no matter what I say, it will vary so much between individual to individual based on their genetics and their levers. You know, you're going to get people that are great deadlifters but they can't press, or they're great squatters but they can't deadlift. It's you know, it's all down to individual genetics basically. So I hope that shed some light on it and didn't confuse you too much. But it's such a loaded question, it's very hard to say. Thanks for watching. If you liked the video, don't forget to subscribe, and see you next time. Thanks very much.